It epitomizes inner city decay and attracts criminals, but it's also refuge to those still hoping to capture life's lost chances. Checkpoint producer Ntokozo Sindani enters the notorious Venucci building in Johannesburg with a mother trying to turn a hellhole into a home.
August 2014, residents of an inner city building set it alight in an attempt to flush out the criminals who live here. Chief editor of the Inner City Gazette, Moses Moyo, remembers the day well.
And it was terrifying, terrifying, terrifying. And the worst of it all was you could hear women scream inside the building because the building was barricaded, the fire was raging inside. And I could see people from the last floor wanting to jump down and police calming down. And that's a scene that must not happen, it must not repeat.
Ngesikhathi kusha ngo-August sasingaphakathi bengiwasha la eduze komnyango endlini sezwe abantu bebangumsindo bethi kuyasha sathatha abantwana sakhuphuka saya phezulu besithukile kakhulu ngoba isimoke sasigcwele iflethi lonke kwangasaphumeki kungasayeki indawo.
Women who live in the building say they set fire to it to flush out criminals like these, seen here attacking a passerby, then fleeing into the bowels of the building. The fire was a desperate attempt by women who just don't feel safe.
Angena kwangabo9 mangicala ngithi ngifake isande ebhoteni ngikhiphe isikhe ngifuna uvala umnyango wami waqhamuka nje umuntu wafika ngibamba kanje wehla nami kusuka e4 waye 3 kwenye indawo emnyama njengalo wafika wangiremula nami
ikona siyasaba ngoba esinye abanye abaningi bakhona abantu ababamba inkunzi abanye abasahlalile bayafika ngokuzoganga bahambe babuyele endaweni zabo.
Nomusa was attracted to these bustling streets from rural KZN by those who spoke of jobs and opportunities in the city of gold. But in reality, it's been very different.
La ngafika ngo-2012 October. Umsebenzi angakaze ngisebenze since ngafika la eGoli angizange ngithole umsebenzi. Mara ngeke ngawufuna sikhona isikhathi ngeke ngawufuna ngaso mara angizange ngikuthole.
Nomusa lives in the notorious Venucci building, once a factory. Today, it epitomizes inner city decay. Bongani also lives in the Venucci building. He was forced to send his family away after the fire.
Ngabuko ukuthi ke kunzima kakhulu ukuthi ngifelwe zingane la. Ngase ngibasusa ke ngabafunela indawo ephephile ngathi ngizosala ke mina. Isimo sabantu besifazane ikakhulukazi asisihle kahle ngeba lokuthi abaphephile la ekhaya.
Staff at the Inner City Gazette, a newspaper that encourages communication between the city of Joburg and its residents, have seen it all. These streets and their derelict buildings are the focus of many stories.
The worst was the one at the corner of End Street and GP Street. I think a week before we actually ran a story that people are stripping the metal from the building. And the following week, the guys actually stripped the column of the building and the building collapsed, killing 4 people. All the problems that were in that building were actually transferred to Venucci building.
The Venucci building is the new inner city pariah. There are no services here. A smell of rotting garbage and human waste permeates the air.
Ama-toilet la awekho engekho abantu bayasebenzisa amaplastiki umuntu akake iplastikini abanye basebenzisa amabhakede balahla abanye bayaphuma bayokaka eparkini or indaweni ezinama-toilet like ema-tavern.
What used to be an elevator shaft is a dumping site for waste. The back of the building is an ever-growing pile of filth, a perfect playground for rats. Within this desperate space, Nomusa struggles to raise her 11-month-old son, Temba.
Ya isikhathi esinzima ubusika ngoba kuyabanda and le ndawo le ayikho ayivalekile kahle yonke kunembobo namawindo nabantu abanezindlu ezisemawindweni ezinamawindo amawindo akhona afile le indawo yakhona ayiklineki namanzi akhona mara amanzi akhona lapho akhona lapha first floor nakhona kwesisikhathi uyafica kunodoti umuntu ufike ukuthi uchitha amakaka khona lapho wena uyokha amanzi uyopheka ngawo uyokwenza ukudla komntwana uyogeza ngawo.
Nomusa says the father of the baby helps out when he's around.
Mayelana nomntwana ubaba wakhe yena uyamsupporta uyamthengela ukudla namaphampa uyamenzela konke but okwamanje akekho sihlala sonke mara okwamanje akekho.
This mother hails from eNCA in rural KZN. She went to school in the area but quit before finishing. She left home after a family row about which she doesn't want to elaborate and set off for the bright city lights 500 kilometers away.
Ngiyafisa ukuthi ngiye ngoba even bona ekhaya bayafona ukuthi kumele ubuye uxole kumele uxole ngifisa ukuthi ngelilanga mase sengi right ngihambe ngekhaya.
Like any loving mother, Nomusa wants the best for her son.
Mina empilweni yami into engifisayo ngiyafisa ukuthi engathi ngathola umsebenzi ngikwazi ukuthi ngithole indawo eright yokuthi ngihlale nomntana nami indawo ephephile nendawo eclean enogesi namanzi.
Restoring buildings takes time and money, often not worth the owner's while. But we found somebody who's brought life back to a block that was once not worth living in.
Just east of the city centre in Yeoville, Tozama Mahlangu has transformed the once dilapidated Josen building into affordable living quarters, suitable for children.
It's actually families in all of the units. It's families and there's lots of children. I know I've created an environment where people can raise children. So we painted walls, we fixed cupboards, we even fixed kitchens. We put marble tops on the kitchens and we changed geysers. We're going to make these units look much, much better.
Tozama struggled to get finance to buy this building. No one was prepared to take the risk.
I bank with 4 banks. Not that I'm rich, but I bank with 4 banks, 4 of them. And none of them could finance my building. And a friend that was selling this building approached me, was looking. And he's the one who referred me to TAF. And TAF has been so helpful because they don't only give you finance and walk away. They do regular inspections of the building.
She may have got help from the Trust for Urban Housing Finance, but says her biggest challenge is maintaining a building like this.
Biggest problem now is that with property, you need to be hands-on. If you don't come and do some inspections, you see, these things are new. They are new. Now, you need to do a follow-up. It's an ongoing thing. Property is not as easy as we may think.
Tozama remembers the day she told her friends that she wanted to buy a residential building.
Everybody around me thought it was not doable. They thought it was such a big step with all the hassles that the bank will give you. There's a lot I can tell, I can share about being a tenant, being ill-treated by a landlord. That inspired me to get a building because I know people are living in buildings that are in bad conditions, paying high rents.
The building has cost her over 2 million rand so far. The cheapest flat is rented out for 3,000 rand a month. Way out of reach for Nomusa, back at the Vanucci building in the city centre. Her best way to escape Vanucci is a shelter for destitute people. But first she needs to qualify, and that requires a visit from social development to assess her circumstances, and particularly those of children in a place like this. Social workers were horrified that this was home to so many children.
The living conditions are appalling. I would not expect any person to think of even staying here. We are worried about children that find themselves subjected into these appalling conditions. However, I will indicate without any fear of contradictions that we will immediately have to, we've already done the interview, the assessment, so we'll remove the mother and the child into a shelter.
After interviewing Nomusa and inspecting her living conditions, social workers were convinced that she and baby Themba needed urgent assistance. But just as everyone involved thought Nomusa could begin a new life, she vanished. Her friends were concerned. Checkpoint later made contact with Nomusa on the phone. She appeared to be having second thoughts about taking Themba to live in a shelter for destitute women. Perhaps she feared her boyfriend. Perhaps she simply couldn't face another change. And so, like countless women in these inner city streets, for now she will continue her life in conditions only fit for rats. Moses Moyo from the Inner City Gazette, who knows the problems of slum buildings better than most, thinks there's lots that can be done around here.
We need emergency shelter in the inner city to actually move people from this type of buildings into that emergency shelters.
We have shelters throughout the city of persons that are found not to have places to sleep. I would send a message out there to say, please be in touch with our 1991 Commissioner Street office so that we can direct you to other offices and places where all the shelters for women with children, all the shelters for men, other shelters for women.
I know there are emergency shelters that are available, but they are not enough.
As for Nomusa, who has packed and unpacked her bags so many times and still not left, only she knows why she's unable to say her final goodbyes to Mnyamandawo, the place of darkness.
Angiboni ukuthi mangaphuma kula ngaphinde ngibuye la indawo ngendlela indawo ekuyiyona le hayi. Ngeke ngiphinde ngibuye la ngafisa ukuthi nabanye baphume.
That's all from us this week. Please do give us your feedback. What do you think of Devani's acquittal? And where do you think Nomusa will end up? Our email address is checkpoint@enca.com and our Twitter handle is @checkpoint_ENCA. Thanks for watching. I'm Mabuse.